Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for being here. As always, today we have Jeff Garzik, an early days Linux kernel dev, a Bitcoin core dev, founder of multiple companies in the crypto space. I mean, I don't really need to say much else other than that. But today we're talking about one of those particular companies called Vesper Finance, and it's really seeking to make DeFi more accessible to everyone. So, Jeff, thanks for being here.
Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, really excited about this. So, I guess right up front, I gave the highlights, but I would love for you to share just a little bit about your background to folks that are watching, might not have met you before, and how you got into the wonderful world of crypto.
Sure. I've always been a digital cash nerd from, the days of my youth. I was pushing
Yeah.
my dad to get one of those newfangled Visa debit cards so that he could pay with a card instead of a check or cash at Burger King and stuff like that. And this was maybe early 90s to mid 90s.
Mhm.
And from there, I had always loved the thought of more efficiency. I thought growing up in Eastern North Carolina, going to the beach, every single cash register at the beach has a sign that says no bra or shoe money. And, that tells you how disgusting
Yeah.
cash can be. I always loved the purity of digital cash, and especially in these coronavirus times, digital cash spreads no germs, right?
Right.
Fast forward to 2010, I was reading slash.org, which was a website at the time that's all about news for nerds. It was one of the most popular technology websites of its time. And there was a story about a decentralized currency. And in my perhaps overcharged ego, I thought to myself, "Oh, there's no way it's completely decentralized. It's got to be just five servers in an Amazon data center or something like that." But the great thing about open source is that you can look under the hood. You can, as I did, read the source code and convince myself that no, it's not just a couple people in, a couple computers distributing the load. This is something fundamentally different from what we've seen before.
Mhm.
And Satoshi, the inventor of Bitcoin, and really the inventor of blockchain, he did something really smart. He pulled together known pieces that people had analyzed,
Mhm.
trusted for years, and he put those known, tested, analyzed pieces together in a new way. And that was blockchain, that was Bitcoin, and kind of the rest is history. But it immediately sucked me in. I immediately started sending changes known as patches
Mhm.
to Satoshi and his then number two, Gavin Andreessen. My very first patch, of course, it was shot down. Needed revisions, but that's part of the open source process. Is you say, "Hey, I'd like to propose this change." You write it, and then critically, it meets peer review.
Mhm.
And they proposed some changes. I made the changes, and my first patch was accepted into Bitcoin. So that was the journey to being a Bitcoin developer, was
Amazing.
just learning the open source process. I had participated in that point in the Linux open source process for over 10 years. So I kind of knew the process. I knew the pipeline, and that led me in the door pretty easily, pretty quickly. From there, wow, just Bitcoin took off.
Yeah.
We held a party when Bitcoin hit $1. We called it the dollar parity party because the exchange rate was at parity with a single dollar. I don't even know what it is now. I don't check it day to day, but it's
Yeah.
well over 40,000 for the past several days as we
Yeah.
record this, and things are looking pretty bright.
It's amazing. Yeah. Well, first of all, props to you. It's healthier not to check it every day. If feel like people are got the scrolling on their apps all the time trying to refresh the price. But having been in this space for this long and been involved in the early days and really looking at it with fresh eyes, before all of the like thousands of different projects legitimate or not, have come into the space. Like how has it changed over the years, from your perspective, for better or for worse? And do you think Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies can kind of coexist throughout the future?
Yeah, being in it for now over a decade, which is maybe one of the longer resumes in crypto, or at least longer gray hairs in crypto.
Yeah.
Uh, there are a couple waves or a couple generations. The first generation of tokens or blockchains were other developers photocopying the Bitcoin source code. That's where you
Mhm.
got Litecoin and Dogecoin. I call those the first generation of tokens. But spinning up an entire network just for a token is incredibly inefficient.
Mhm.
And so that's why most of those networks, they kind of died off once Ethereum came along. Ethereum is a lot more programmable, but more specifically, from a technology standpoint, it has a key thing that Bitcoin lacks, which is on-chain self-sovereign entities, or
Mhm.
short way of saying contracts can have addresses, which
Yep.
is distinctly different from Bitcoin. Bitcoin has scripts. And people nerds debate about Turing completeness and all these other details, but fundamentally, it's about, can you have a blockchain address that itself stores a balance and is completely controlled by a script? And
Yeah.
those kind of abstract Lego blocks are what Ethereum brought to the table and ushered in the second generation of blockchain, where to spin up a token, you just spin up a contract and send Ethereum a little bit of network fees for gas. And boom, the Jeff coin or the Hashoshi coin is born.
Yeah.
And that obviously made it a whole lot easier. One network supporting, thousands upon thousands of tokens.
Mhm.
But Ethereum really ushered in, I think, the third generation of blockchain as well, which is sort of the DeFi composability era.
Right.
Is Bitcoin gave us this abstract unit of thought, which is a fixed supply token. And there are a lot of obviously competition to that and deviations, derivations of that. But that was the first fundamental building block, was just a self-sovereign digital token. But you need to do something with it besides hold it.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where DeFi composability and programmability come in. Is you can build, as people have done, exchanges, lending platforms, options platforms, all of which they don't custody assets. They're all non-custodial.
Mhm.
So permissionless, trust reduced, not trustless, but trust reduced. And they deal with any number of tokens in a highly compatible way. That's led to this DEX explosion, this explosion of tokens. NFTs, they're not directly on DEXs, but they wouldn't have happened without that DEX explosion.
Right.
So I've been privileged to just watch that kind of trajectory from, here's Bitcoin, here's a token, to here's creating mini tokens, to
Mhm.
now third generation of here's what you can actually do when you combine tokens and put them into programmable products. And that's kind of where Vesper comes in. That's what gets me excited,
Mhm.
is that I can just design a product and it's pure abstract math. It's pure smart contract. And then we have a software engineering process, and we can get into some of those. But it's just so much. It's tough to put into words. I go from idea to financial product in so few lines of code and such little time.
Mhm.
That is what really captures what's exciting about Ethereum and the modern sort of generation three blockchains today.
Yeah, it's a whole new world, and I think with that, you started to allude to it, right? There's a lot of beautiful simplicity and also beautiful complexity, and it's that duality that's almost so fascinating. But for the end user, I think for someone who's just so far removed from this space, and for someone like you or I, something that makes total sense and it's easy to do becomes very difficult. And so I feel like there's a lot of people that just can't quite get into the space and get comfortable. And so I take it that that's Vesper's main mission. Could you give a little bit of information about what the product is in its very basic sense and what's behind it?
Absolutely, and that really was part of the driving motivation for Vesper itself. Coming from my Red Hat Linux background, there was this pattern of there's just a wonderful amount of open source development that happens in the Linux community, and
Mm,
it's just what I call this font of innovation. Just developers building great stuff, but as an end user, as someone who wants to use this stuff, most people just look at it and see kind of a spread of parts on the ground, and they say, "How do I put all this together? How do I make
mhm.
sense of this?" And that's where 10 years ago my former employer Red Hat came in, is made Linux usable, understandable for the average person, and it
Right.
bridged that gap between the genius plumbers of the Linux world and the users that just want to get things done and play some audio and edit some documents and browse the web, and they don't really care about the plumbing underneath. And that's what I felt DeFi was lacking in particular,
Mhm.
is you to make good APY, you need to know what a curve, REN, WBTC, LP pair token was, and
Yeah.
how and where to stake it and unstake it. And, for again, nerds will get into the details and they'll figure that out in 5 seconds flat. But my argument why we started Vesper was you shouldn't have to know those details. If you have Ethereum, you should just be able to say, I want to deposit my Ethereum here, a little bit like a savings or money market account, and it compounds. And you don't have
Mhm.
to worry about what is impermanent loss, or, what is this lending platform's liquidity percentage, or, any of these underlying details. We
Right.
felt that we could create a safe, secure, conservative experience where people that are new to DeFi, and they've maybe heard about the food festival. I heard that there was a yam hack and a sushi
Yeah.
hack and a pickle hack. It's all related to food somehow. We take all of that worry away and put a veneer of due diligence,
Mhm.
software development, CI/CD pipelining, and a number of other techniques that are familiar to any software engineer. It's not rocket science, but
Mhm.
we're applying that to the smart contract world. All of the smart contracts that you see on app.vesper.finance, they get audited by auditors, they get tested internally, they get beta tested with live capital, our capital,
Mhm.
before we risk users' capital. So we have
Yeah.
this risk staircase that when users touch it, it's really been through the QA ringer,
Mhm.
quality assurance, and people can have a higher level of trust, and hopefully a higher level of professionalism shines through. So that was really the motivation behind Vesper. I just think about user outcomes, user experience, and how can we remove the rough edges and fears from DeFi if at all possible.
Yeah, and while still kind of leaving the ethos of it intact, where people can earn yield, they can access it through basically an easy to use client and all that sort of jazz. I think the thing that you mentioned is very interesting that I've been thinking about for a while is live fund testing, right? Having it there, like the attack vectors are similar to what they would be with user funds. Let's really test it live on a mainnet type of environment. And I think that more projects should be willing to release things more slowly and really get it right, because I feel like there are a lot of people that would enter into the space with that level of assurance.
Oh, absolutely. And if for developers, any developers listening, our beta site app.vesperdev.net,
Hmm.
is part of that staircase, and that is literally live capital that we contribute and our beta testers contribute. And you get access to some of the bleeding edge products before they're
Hmm.
released. And the yin and the yang, the zen balance of that is there's a little bit higher risk because it's beta testing.
Hmm.
But at the end of the day, when it goes to production, those users can have that confidence that this is a non-custodial, permissionless, DeFi native gadget that has really been beaten up and tested and been through that trial of fire and come out the other side.
And so for someone who might be watching that wants to give this a try, because I know there are quite a few people who watch my show that are really interested in getting involved in the space, but have said to me like, I'm learning, I'm not ready to put my money on the line yet. Like if they're interested in trying this out in a sort of a safe space, what would the process be like for them to go in, and like what types of returns would they be looking at? Like what the process is like?
Sure. So it does require a Web3 wallet.
Hmm.
So either MetaMask or Trust Wallet, Coinbase Wallet. Coinbase Wallet is pretty popular for newer users. And once they have that, they can go straight to app.vesper.finance. And there's a list of pools into which they can deposit.
Hmm.
It's one asset to each pool. And these are all labeled as conservative. And let me explain what that means.
Sure.
We aggregate across the entirety of DeFi looking for the best yield, but you don't just want to look at the highest APY
Yeah.
because some of these sites are have a low quality score, a low trust score. Their smart contracts might not have been tested very well. They might not have gone through audits, et cetera. So we look at over 20 aspects of DeFi platforms from time in market, transaction volume, dollar volume, to come up with I love this word. It came from traditional finance. Seasoned
Hmm.
is that platform seasoned? Does it have the time in market and the sort of trial by fire that we can lend trust to it? And on top of that, we perform a technical evaluation. We look at the team, the code, how much liquidity is at each of those platforms. And we bucket those into either conservative or aggressive.
Hmm.
And the ones that make the conservative bucket, those are the ones that we judge as the safest and has the most time in the market. They've really done well with their audits and their software quality. And as a result, that's the ones that you'll see, for example, under conservative on app.vesper.finance. The stable coins, they tend to run somewhere between 4 to 8% APY.
Hmm.
USDT at this particular moment, as we record this, is abnormally high at 16%. So,
Hmm.
get while the getting's good.
Yep.
Traditionally, volatile cryptos will run between 50 basis points, so 0.5%, to 1 to 2%,
Hmm.
and that's kind of in range for volatiles and stables. And then
Hmm.
on top of that, we of course, like some other websites, we have a voting participation and governance token that you can either use to enhance your APY or participate in actually governing and running the Vesper system. So I can talk more about that later, but from the basic new user standpoint, that's the APYs that you can kind of expect for stable coins and volatiles. And it should be just a visit and deposit experience. We
Hmm.
really think about how do we eliminate all the friction points and make it as easy as possible.
It makes a huge difference. And I mean, some of those users too will probably start there and want to earn some yields, which regardless if it's 1, 2%, still, beats the heck out of any bank interest rate that you're going to get, right?
Oh, absolutely.
So it's a no-brainer from that perspective, and then from there, that's how people have the chance to learn about things like that governance token. So maybe like surface level, what does that governance token in Vesper really allow you to do, and what is that lever for people that might want to just learn from brass tacks?
Sure. Well, let me answer that by peeking a little bit under the hood at some of the stuff that's coming,
Cool.
because that plays right into that. So we have our current product line. It's called Vesper Grow,
Mm-hmm.
and it's super simple. You deposit a token, and that token compounds, and you don't have to worry about concepts like impermanent loss or things of that nature. You just your balance should never go down. It'll go up depending on the spot rate APY, but it should
Mm-hmm.
never go down. So deposit X, compound X. That's the pattern,
Right.
and that's Vesper Grow. And we have a number of pools, the stable coins, USDC, USDT, DAI, number of volatiles, ETH, Link, Uni, WBTC, pretty much all the majors.
Right.
And again, the VSP token controls these. It also, and I'll explain what that means in a second. Part of the Vesper umbrella is it's beyond that Vesper Grow product line. Our next product line is a brand new DeFi primitive that people are not familiar with. It's called, we call it Vesper Earn, and
Mm-hmm.
this is deposit X, earn Y pattern. And so, to give a specific example, if you're a ETH or Bitcoin holder, hodler, you want to hold on to that ETH, but you also want to do something with it. You want to make it work for you. And
Mm-hmm.
so, in a real example, you'd deposit ETH, and then you'd earn a drip of stablecoin USDC for daily spending money. So your Bitcoin is being used to generate yield in another token, and then we drip that token back to you. So it's kind of a, if you're a fan of Harry Potter like I am, you're kind
Yeah.
of a transmute type operation from one into another. And then we do the reverse is if you want a dollar cost average into Bitcoin or into ETH, you can, in a similar Vesper Earn pool, you can deposit USDC and use the interest from that to robo accumulate ETH or Bitcoin.
That's powerful.
So it's a new primitive, and it's really powerful. And there are a lot of ways that we can kind of open the doors with that. And then finally, we feed all these required yield sources and yield strategies under the hood. That's our plumbing that we're very proud of. And we spun up our own lending platform as a way to continue to provide more yield sources, perhaps for some of the underserved coins that aren't listed elsewhere. So grow, earn, and lend are three product lines. They're all under that Vesper umbrella, and
Mm-hmm.
each one of those is it's not controlled by Jeff. It's not controlled by Block. It is governed on chain by the VSP token,
Mm-hmm.
which itself requires a little bit of explanation. That is itself a pool that receives revenue from all the other Vesper products.
Mm-hmm.
And so the way to participate in the Vesper ecosystem and literally help us run the project is to hold VVSP, which is itself a compounding token, and use that to vote on various economic details and team details, etc. So we call it the Vesper DAO, and we are progressively moving to the point where the team doesn't have any sort of multi-sig access or
Mm-hmm.
anything of that nature. It's 100% governed on chain, like Compound and some of the other major projects.
It's very important. So, I mean, if you're watching this and you're not a, DeFi native or a person who's been in this space a long time. Like that's something that you have to be focused on and thinking about is, you know, how decentralized is the decentralized finance that you're interacting with? How sustainable are the yields? How, like you said, how seasoned is this? So, this is all really good, like golden advice and thought provoking stuff for people to listen to and to learn as you go. And I think this is like the perfect place for someone who's just getting into the space to learn all these things in a a lower risk environment. Obviously, there's always going to be risk in crypto, and you have exposure to volatiles and things like that. But really, really cool. So, I mean, Jeff, to kind of wrap things up, I'm really curious just to hear your thoughts off the cuff on just the crypto market in general, right? With building a DeFi product, having been in the Bitcoin space for a long time as well. Like we just saw a momentous occasion at the time of recording. It's about August 18th today, 2021. And we had recently crossed $2 trillion market cap in crypto, something that me 10 years ago, I would have laughed. Not even laughed. I would have walked away from you, full stop. Is this just the tip of the iceberg? Like, do you think that this is the beginning and there's, more institutional, more retail user experience going to pull people in even further, like 2 trillion being the start?
Full stop. It is still the early days. My favorite litmus test to let us know when we have arrived is when I can pay. We can do that today privately to a mortgage instrument on chain over a period of 30 years. All of that's basically your real estate mortgage experience for your average suburbanite here in America today. And we have a number of those Lego pieces, but we haven't all put them together yet. I can't trust an instrument for 30 years. I certainly can't pay my mortgage in volatile currency like Bitcoin or Ethereum. That'll just bankrupt. That'll either bankrupt the node holder or that'll bankrupt me. And so can you do it with stablecoin? Yes, but is there private stablecoin with smart contracts? Not yet. So it's all moving in that direction. But the fact that my litmus tests were not passing yet still tells me that it's still early days. We're just getting institutions putting toes in the water. But they are putting toes in the water, which is different from, staying out of the pool, no pun intended. And hi-fi or hybrid finance, that's just around the corner where the DeFi folks are playing right next to a KYC version of the exact same lending pool or yield pool. And that in turn is where the institutions will take their first steps. But they're going to look at all of us in DeFi and say, just like they did with Bitcoin, my little KYC pool over here is great, but I just realized that's the baby pool. And I want to dive into DeFi full stop. And, as it's playing out with regulators and governments around the world, they're trying to figure out, how much do we KYC this versus regulatory sandbox. A lot of that's going to play out in the next 12 months, and institutions are really going to take their signals from regulators and regulatory clarity. As sad as that, makes me as an activist, that's just the realistic nature of institutions. They need that regulatory clarity.
Yeah, they won't put it all on the line to test out a liquidity pool.
But it is such early days. I'm so excited. I get up every morning to build financial products. It's kind of a dream job come true. And now I think it's Vesper is ready for its evolution to start pulling in external developers. That was really the ultimate dream of Vesper is it's a Linux-like open source project, full stop, where any developer, whether they're in Atlanta, Georgia, as I am, or Shanghai or Indonesia, it's all about your mind and your code. And if you can walk up and say, I've got a better yield algorithm or a more efficient this or that, Vesper is ready not only to accept that code, but to give that developer a recurring stream of income that compensates them continually for that. That was the end game, is how do I bring on other developers who are just as smart, but they don't have this risk adjusting pipeline that we've built. And we feel that marrying that software quality standard that we have with the developer energy that Ethereum and blockchain world has is really, kind of 1+1 = 3.
It's amazing. I mean, there's so much cool, inspiring stuff in this episode alone. I mean, that's awesome. So thank you, Jeff, for that. I think anyone who's watching, whether beginner or someone who's been in the space for a while, got something out of this. And regardless of whether you're a beginner or someone who's been in the space a while, I will leave links to Vesper and some of the other, the other products in the family down below as well in the description. If you're interested in checking that out, highly recommend you do so. If you have questions for Jeff, please leave them in the comments as well, and I will pass them his way after the show goes live. But Jeff, thank you so much for taking the time to jump in to give folks all of your insights to talk about Vesper.
Yeah, I really appreciate you having me, and I hope that folks learned a couple things. I love teaching, and so if anyone reaches out with questions, I'd love to answer them and talk more.
Amazing. That's a great opportunity, folks. So definitely take Jeff up on that. And of course, thank you very much to everyone who's watching the show. Thank you for taking the time. Until next time, cheers.